hit a 522, where 104 was parked in the shade, thinking, baby, I'm waiting for you. Jake laughed and thought he had it made, but you should have seen the look in his eyes when...
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
And here I am. We got a great guest tonight. He's going to be talking about his book. His name is Mke McCoy. Mike, are you still with us?
Hey, Gary. Yeah, I'm still here.
Well, what made you decide, of all things, to write a book about, well, asteroids?
Well, I'd always wanted to write books, and I attempted and failed at a few different ideas, and this was an idea that I felt I could finish. My worry in the beginning was that it was going to be too short, but as you've noticed, it's not a short book. It just became a big project as I got into it, but it was a lot of fun.
Oh, how long did it take you to write it, out of curiosity?
You know, I was working and whatnot, so I didn't write every day, and sometimes I took a few months break, so it took 5 years to go through the whole thing and edit it and rewrite it and edit again and edit it again. So about 5 years from start to finish.
Wow. You know what? It is a very good read from what I've read so far. I am very impressed. I've known other people that'll sit down and write a book over the weekend, and then they wonder why the book isn't selling. And you know, you can't write a book in a weekend. You can't write a book in a month. If you want a good book, it takes time to write a book. You know, a friend of mine who's no longer with us, Art Bell and Whitney, wrote a book called Superstorm. They certainly didn't write that book over in a weekend.
Yeah, it takes time. I mean, the editing and rewriting and working with editors and things, it's drudgery. It takes a lot of time and effort, you know, and then even after you've had everybody look at it, then somebody else will find a little typo or something. And so, yeah, it's a lot of work. But I think it's important to really work hard to put out something that's quality, that people can enjoy and be entertained by.
What I notice, what you don't see in many books anymore, you list all the chapters.
Yes, and that was partly to create the part of the feeling of the book, but also to help me keep track of what was happening, because it is, you know, there are a lot of components to it, and while I was writing it, the timeline, you know, there's also a pretty precise timeline that it follows, and so I at one point was reshuffling and renumbering chapters, and just thought, I think that's it, and it turned out to be the right fit. But they weren't all in this order earlier, so. Wow,
this is sit there, you know, 500 and some pages, and to put it all together, it fits like a glove. I mean, how did you get all this? I know you checked with NASA, you checked with all these other things, but to put this whole story together, I mean, wasn't it really hard to do?
It was, but it was fun. I mean, I love to do the research and things, you know, and like I mentioned earlier, I talked to Dr. Joe Nuth of Goddard Flight Space Center, another scientist from Iowa State University that does asteroid deflection concepts. He helped on part of the book. So I was able to contact experts to help. And then, you know, I'm really good at Googling. So all the science and asteroid facts and things like that, I was able to pull together and make it, you know, hopefully educational as well as entertaining. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I was worried because I was searching for, you know, nuclear devices and asteroids and all different kinds of things all the time. I was afraid that NSA was going to knock on my door at any moment. There's there's also some, futuristic military stuff in there. So yeah, I was like concerned I was going to get visited.
Well, who knows? So far, the line hasn't gone wacky. I can honestly tell you, and I mentioned it the other night, and James is a witness because he does my news and stuff, and we do the first hour. We do like the wacky news, and we talk about UFOs and reports of all kinds of stuff. But every time we get somebody that is well known on a particular subject out there, all of a sudden when we try talking to them, their phone lines go bad. Like Timothy Cullen, he was like the number 9, I believe, implant removal from the late Dr. Roger Lear. And every time we would get Timothy on the show, which he's been on 5 or 6 times, we'd be talking about certain subjects, and all of a sudden the line would just go, you could barely hear. We couldn't talk. So the time before the last time, he went and had the phone company check the phone line. He bought a brand new phone. For a backup phone, he bought a military-grade cell phone and made sure everything was working perfect. Not a bit of noise on the line. Soon as we started talking about, his implant, the lines just went crazy. And, and then I would tell, hey, Tim, we have to disconnect. Let's try your cell phone. And it would work fine for a minute or two. Then we get back on the subject, and guess what? The line would start getting staticky, and we couldn't talk.
Somebody's listening.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, we're letting you know we're listening to you. So as long as you don't have that problem, you don't have to worry about that knock on the door.
Not yet. I was afraid, maybe that if an asteroid storm was really coming to Earth, that NASA would ban the book. But I suppose that would probably be good publicity for it, too.
Yeah, it would be. And again, I don't know. I see it's a lot of weird things going on. We have the formation of a space force all of a sudden. We have a lot of political weird things going on to take our minds off of things. And then it seems like for the last, 6 months, James, it's been every day almost. Asteroid. Near misses. Like I said, the one that scared me was the one they said it wasn't going to come anywhere near the Earth, plunks down in the Mediterranean. What's that tell you how reliable that, the information they give?
Yeah, the tracking is difficult. I mean, and they don't always necessarily follow a perfect orbit. So, yeah, I mean, even if they think something's going to miss, it might not. And, there's a Apophis, I don't know how to pronounce it, Apophis. There's a big asteroid that people are talking about in 2029 is going to smash into Earth. There's a Russian scientist who's sure it is, and then others say, no, it's not going to. And I think Bennu in, I forgot what year, is going to be coming 19,000 miles past Earth, just at an altitude of 19,000 miles. That's below a lot of our satellites. Hopefully it doesn't knock out some. And the scientists were excited because they'll get to look at it so closely. But it could be a whisper of a degree off and smash right into Earth. So maybe they are preparing for something because they know there's a good chance that something might hit us.
Well, back here too, there was a big one here about a year ago. It said it was supposed to come between the Earth and the Moon. But it didn't. It came and it actually hit our ionic sphere and bounced back out.
Yep, and a near Earth object is considered between Earth and the Sun. That's how.
Yeah, I know.
90 million miles away, they consider that near Earth. If an object comes between Earth and the Moon, that's really close. It's in space terms. So that's when it gets real scary.
Oh yeah. So I mean, how long has your book been out?
It has been out since September. I did an earlier release then I had to do some editing and fixing, but really September of this year, and it's getting good reviews, and sales are ticking up. So I'm mostly keeping busy working on the next thing.
Okay. Well, why? Well, because I got you for almost another hour. So I do want to talk more about asteroids and what could happen type of a scenario. But why don't you tell everybody about your book and where they can find it?
Well, it's called Asteroids, Bridge to Nowhere, and you can find it on Amazon.com. Just search for Asteroids and Bridge, and it'll pop up. So Amazon, you can find it on Apple iBooks as well, and I think Kobo and Barnes & Noble. So it's pretty much anywhere you can buy an ebook. There's also paperback and hardcover versions. So it's out there, it's available, and I hope people do check it out and enjoy it. I mean, it really fits all ages. I've had a cousin or nephew from Hong Kong who was 9 years old and read it in 3 days. And then I have friends that are in their 60s that are reading it as well. So I think it really crosses, all ages. And even though it's long, it is a pretty easy read. I've read it at least 9 times. I've wrote it and edited it. And I think, it's topical because it's asteroids, but also, it's a little bit, there are other layers to the book. It's a fun adventure, so there's lots of adventures and chases and things. But it also deals with, what if you're in the middle of an asteroid storm and you have a shelter where your family is safe, and because in the book, a character is created what they call a hideaway up in the mountains north of Los Angeles, and it can only support about 12 to 15 people. And they've got a sustainable environment there and things like that. Uncle Rob was kind of a prepper, and he planned ahead. He didn't know this was going to happen, but he planned ahead anyway. And the dilemma is that it's supposed to be secret. The secret gets out, and more people want to come into the converted mine. And if you add more people, everybody may die because there aren't enough resources. So the real dilemma about who gets to live and who gets to die, how do you make that choice?
And that's scary. I will take this. Twilight Zone had a episode where a guy was building a fallout shelter in his basement because he was worried about, war with the Soviet Union, missiles, and he wanted to protect his wife and his daughter and himself. So he built this fallout shelter. All his neighbors were making fun of him, ridiculing him because he built this fallout shelter. All of a sudden,
crazy.
Yeah, and all of a sudden on the news, they said there's a missile launch, and it's coming your way. Mm-hmm. So he gets all the water. He gets his wife. They go down into his shelter, and here's his neighbors that ridiculed him, made fun of him, banging on the door, begging to come in. And he's saying, I can't let you in. Well, I got my wife and my child, a newborn baby, they're going to die. Well, and he said, I told you should have built a fallout shelter instead of having all these barbecues. And then more of his friends came and more of his friends came. Now they're all begging to come in. And he's saying, I can't let you because it can only support the 3 of us. That's it. It can't support any more than that. So they break the door down. And as they break the door down and come in or start going into it, it's announced on the radio that it was a false alarm.
Okay.
And everybody all of a sudden realized they were fools. And they start saying, I'm sorry, we'll pay for the damages. And they act all buddy-buddy. And he said, you know what? I lost faith in my friends, in humanity. And it was so true because that's how people would react. So if you went out, like you're saying, you had a bug out place, which some people do, and they're well stocked, that if the word got around, chaos could happen because they're not prepared for it. But a lot of these guys, I'll be honest with you, they got weapons planted all around their property, and they're ready for a firefight. Yeah,
so if they're getting attacked, then they'll be able to react. Yes, same. in the book,